here we are. I am ready to make some matzah. I have my matzah making apron and all of my supplies, and we are going to make some matzah. So here's what you're going to need to make matzah. I turned my oven on to as high as it will go. My oven goes to 550 degrees. And I put inside of my oven a cookie sheet turned over so that it gets really hot. We're gonna cook on the back of that baking sheet. If you have a pizza stone, that would work well also, but I have baking sheets, so that's what we're using. You're gonna need a bowl. You're gonna need a surface on which to roll. You're gonna need some flour and some water. You're gonna need some measuring cups. You're gonna need a rolling pin. And I also have and you're gonna need a fork for pricking the holes inside your matzah. I have a few additional items. I have a brush in case we want to add anything fancy to our matzah. I have some salt here to add a little flavor to the top of my matzah. And of course, I have Moses. And if you don't have a Moses, that's okay. He's optional, but I have Moses here to watch my matzah baking. So it's important to know that matzah takes only 18 minutes to make. That's because we have to make sure that the flour and the water don't have time to mix together enough to rise. If you'll remember, the Israelites left Egypt in a great hurry. They mixed up their flour and their water, but they didn't have time for the bread to rise. Our ancient rabbis interpreted this to be that we don't rise any of our bread products on Passover. So they figured that the 18-minute time frame was just the right time frame for the water and the flour to not make any rising happen. So that's why we're gonna do it in 18 minutes. So we're gonna work quickly. Luckily, it's actually very easy to do this. So I'm gonna show you what to do. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get a cup of flour. The proportions for matzah is 3 parts flour to 1 part water. So we're gonna use, so you see it's almost Passover, so I'm running out of flour. It's okay though. So I have 1 cup of flour. I'm gonna put that in. And I have some water here because, and I have a 1/3 cup. Usually use a liquid measure for water, but wanted to make sure you could see that it was 1/3 of a cup. And I'm gonna scoop it in, and I'm gonna keep the little extra water here just in case we feel like we need a little extra water. So that's why I did it this way. So I'm gonna take 1/3 of a cup of water. Now, from the moment I start until the moment I put it in the oven, I need to be doing this in 18 minutes. So here we go. You ready? On your marks, get set, go. I'm gonna pour the water in, and then I'm just gonna start to mix it around. And so you can see that I am mixing it around, and it's a little goopy, and it's just flour and water, so there's not a lot going on here, right? But I'm gonna mix and mix until I get it all mixed together. Keep going, I wanna work fast. See, it's a little shaggy at this point, and my hand's a little sticky, but it's starting to come together and feel like dough. As soon as it all comes together, I can get all the little bits of flour and water that are at the bottom of the bowl. As soon as I have all that, I'm gonna dump it out onto my table, and I'm gonna start to knead it, right? So, and I have to decide if I need to put in any extra water, which I think maybe just a little bit of water will help it. A little bit, depends on how dry it is in your house, maybe how dry your flour was. I'm just gonna knead this till it's a nice, smooth dough. You can see I'm just kneading, and we're not making a lot of matzah here, so it's a small bit of dough. I'm gonna knead it so that it feels kind of smooth, so it's all really well mixed together. Okay, feels good. This feels like a really nice dough. It's kind of squishy, right? Okay, so now I'm gonna take off a little bit of it, and I'm gonna need a little extra flour. So I have a little left here in my bag, and I'm gonna sprinkle it around on my on my rolling pin and on my surface, because you don't want anything to stick. And push this off to the side. Dip that in. I'm gonna start to roll. I'm gonna roll it as thin as you can get it. You don't want it to puff up at all. I'm gonna roll it out. from the middle to the outside, and then I keep moving around. You'll see it's not square like the matzah that we buy in the store. Definitely not square. In fact, it has a strange shape at all, but that's okay. Matzah does not have to be square to be acceptable for Passover. Just has to be 18 minutes. So here we go, as thin as I can get it. It's pretty thin. I'm gonna see if I can get a little thinner. Whoop, my frog. Flying frogs. All right, I'm gonna put that one off to the side for a minute. I'm gonna do another one. So now these are both pretty thin. Now I'm gonna take some of the flour off my hand and I'm gonna poke all over my matzah. This also does not have to be pretty. Does not have to be in straight lines like the matzah you buy in the store, but you want the holes to kind of go pretty well through your matzah. That's one of the things that's gonna keep it also from puffing up, right? All those little holes in the matzah that I'm putting in my. If you have one of those tools, there are some rolling tools that do this on pizza. That would work. I do not have a fancy tool like that. However, I have lots of forks. So this is working great. All right. So now, we're gonna make one plain and one sort of fancy. So here's what we're gonna do if you wanna make the fancy one. Take a tiny bit of oil, put it on top, and you're gonna brush it around. Now, technically for Seder, you're supposed to eat your matzah completely plain, but for the rest of the time, you can eat matzah that's a little fancier. Some kosher salt here, gonna open that up, gonna sprinkle a little salt on top of this one. It's gonna be great. Okay, so now I have two, plain and extra fancy. So we're gonna take the matzah and we're gonna put it right on the preheated baking sheet in the oven, right on the surface. We're gonna leave it in there for a couple of minutes till it's hot and crispy. Then we're gonna flip it over. So like this. Open the oven, I'm gonna throw it in there. Then I'm gonna do the same thing with the sort of fancier one. And then we're gonna close up the oven. And I'm gonna set the timer for 2 minutes. And we're gonna wait. Okay, so that's our 2-minute timer. We're gonna check the matzah in the oven. It's already starting to look a little crispy. So I'm gonna take my handy dandy tongs and I'm gonna flip it over. Let me suggest that if you're making fancy matzah, you do these at the end because a little bit of the oil and salt will get on your baking sheet and will be easier to do all of the plain matzah you wanna make first. But since we're doing this for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna use my tongs and I'm gonna flip it over. Looks a lot like matzah. And I'm gonna set the timer, and this time I'm gonna cook it for 3 minutes so that it just gets a little extra time on the other side. So I'm gonna set the timer, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay, so about 3 minutes has gone by, and I am ready to take our matzah out of the oven. Oh my goodness, look at that. It is crispy and crunchy. I'm gonna take that one out, and here's the salted one. Crunchy. You might even be able to give it another minute or so in your oven. Some ovens are hotter than others and you want it to be nice and crispy but not to burn because, well, you know, that would make a mess. So I'm going to take the matzah. It's very hot. You can hear that crunch of the matzah. I'm going to take a little bit of it. I'm going to say a motzi over it. I'm not going to say the matzah bracha quite yet. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Blessed are you, our God, who brings forth matzah bread from the earth. Mmm, delicious.